Across Utah, vast deserts, winding canyons, and rugged mountains preserve subtle traces of ancient human life that continue to puzzle historians and archaeologists alike. From cliffside granaries and intricate rock art panels to hidden shelters and enigmatic stone structures, these landscapes reflect stories of survival, belief, and transformation. Each site carries a quiet sense of mystery, inviting us to interpret the past through the marks and remnants left behind in stone and earth.
Buckhorn Wash cuts through the heart of eastern Utah's San Rafael Swell, a rugged landscape shaped by erosion, deep time, and long stretches of isolation. The wash itself feels open and quiet, bordered by low cliffs and desert scrub. Yet along those canyon walls lies one of the most extensive and visually striking collections of rock art in the region, stretching for hundreds of feet across the stone. The Buckhorn Wash panels feel less like a single site and more like a long, unfolding record of human presence. What makes this place remarkable isn't just the number of images, but the sense that people returned here again and again over centuries, each leaving marks for their own reasons. Standing in front of the panels, you're not looking at a single moment in time. You're seeing layers of history built on top of one another, sometimes literally placed over earlier images. The oldest figures are generally linked to the Barrier Canyon style, also called the Great Gallery style, not Pecos River. These figures are immediately recognizable: tall, elongated, human-like forms with narrow bodies, broad shoulders, and hollow or mask-like eyes. Many lack arms or legs. Some seem to float rather than stand. Their faces are often blank, giving them an almost ghost-like presence. Even without knowing their age, they feel deeply ancient. These figures don't tell obvious stories. They aren't scenes of hunting or daily life. Instead, they feel symbolic, almost otherworldly. Some researchers believe they represent spiritual beings, shamans, or visions experienced in altered states of consciousness. Others see them as ancestral or mythic figures tied to belief systems we no longer fully understand. What's clear is that they were never meant to depict ordinary life. Later additions to the panels are associated with the Fremont culture and later Ute people traditions. These carvings introduce more familiar imagery. Bighorn sheep appear frequently, carved with curved horns and solid bodies. Human figures become smaller and more active, sometimes shown holding weapons or participating in hunting scenes. Footprints, handprints, and abstract shapes fill the spaces between figures, creating a dense visual field that rewards slow, careful observation. What stands out is how these different styles coexist. Newer carvings don't completely erase the older ones. In many cases, artists worked around earlier images, acknowledging their presence while adding something new.
This suggests continuity rather than replacement. Buckhorn Wash was not abandoned and later rediscovered. It remained meaningful across generations and cultures. The scale of the panels adds to their impact. This is not a hidden site tucked into a narrow alcove. The artwork stretches along an exposed cliff face, visible from a distance. Anyone moving through the wash would have seen it. That visibility raises an important question. Who was this art meant for? One possibility is that Buckhorn Wash served as a landmark or gathering place. The wash follows a natural travel corridor through the swell, making it a logical route for seasonal movement, trade, or hunting. Rock art in such locations often acts as a marker, signaling territory, shared beliefs, or collective memory. These images may have been meant to be seen, recognized, and remembered. Another possibility is that the panels functioned as a teaching space. Some scenes appear almost instructional, showing animals, repeated patterns, or symbolic forms. The act of carving itself may have been part of passing down knowledge, with younger generations learning both the meaning of the symbols and the process of creating them. There is also a ceremonial interpretation. The barrier canyon figures in particular resist practical explanation. Their scale and abstraction suggest ritual importance. The repetition of certain forms hints at shared beliefs extending beyond a single group or moment in time. Despite decades of study, no single interpretation fully explains the site. That uncertainty is part of what makes Buckhorn Wash so compelling. The panels resist simple narratives. They don't resolve into a clear beginning or ending. Instead, they feel like an ongoing dialogue between people and place. The process of creating the art adds another layer of meaning. Petroglyphs were made by pecking through the dark desert varnish to reveal lighter stone beneath, a slow, deliberate act requiring time and effort. Some figures are deeply carved with confident lines. Others are lighter, almost tentative. This variation suggests different artists, different intentions, and different levels of experience. The environment matters too. The San Rafael swell is harsh and unpredictable. Water is limited. Temperatures shift dramatically. Choosing to spend time here was not accidental. It meant pausing, staying, and engaging directly with the land. The rock face itself becomes part of the message, shaped by sunlight, shadow, and weather.
Modern visitors often notice how the panels change throughout the day. In early morning or late afternoon, low-angle light makes the carvings stand out vividly. At midday, they can nearly disappear. That interaction with light may not be accidental. The art reveals itself depending on time and perspective. Like many accessible rock art sites, Buckhorn Wash has suffered damage. In the past, some visitors chalked the carvings to make them more visible for photographs, permanently altering the surface. Others scratched initials nearby. While preservation efforts have improved, those marks remain a reminder of how fragile this history is. Today, Buckhorn Wash is protected but still open to the public. You can walk right up to the panels. There are no fences separating you from the art. That closeness is powerful. You are standing where others stood hundreds or even thousands of years ago, looking at the same stone. What's missing is just as important as what remains. There are no written explanations, no definitive dates carved into the rock, no final image signaling an ending. The art simply stops, as if the conversation moved somewhere else. From a modern perspective, it's tempting to search for a single meaning, but Buckhorn Wash resists that. It reminds us that ancient lives were not divided into neat categories. Art, belief, survival, and memory were intertwined. A carving could be spiritual, practical, and symbolic all at once. Visiting today, the experience feels surprisingly intimate. A road runs nearby, cars pass, yet the panels hold their presence. They demand attention, patience, and respect. Buckhorn Wash feels less like a message and more like a presence, something that exists without needing to explain itself. It anchors people to a place, reminding them of those who came before and what mattered enough to carve into stone. Today, it stands as one of Utah's most important open-air rock art galleries. Its accessibility is both a gift and a challenge. It allows direct connection with deep history, but it also requires restraint. The art survived because it endured distance, silence, and time. Its mystery isn't about decoding every symbol. It's about accepting that meaning doesn't always carry cleanly across centuries. Sometimes the most honest response is simply to stand still, observe quietly, and let the stone speak in its own way, knowing that some stories are meant to remain unfinished.
Range Creek Canyon rests quietly along the eastern edge of Utah's Book Cliffs, a place that almost seems intentionally concealed. Even now, getting there requires real effort. Long dirt tracks, steep canyon walls, and vast stretches of silence make it easy to understand why the area stayed largely undisturbed for so long. For generations, people passed nearby without realizing that one of the most well-preserved ancient landscapes in the American West lay hidden there,
protected by geography and a bit of chance. What sets Range Creek apart is not only what exists within it, but what never happened to it. For much of the 20th century, looters never reached this canyon. Roads didn't carve through it. Farms didn't flatten it. Development simply passed it by. Because of this, when archaeologists finally gained access in the early 2000s, they stepped into something remarkably close to a time capsule. Granaries still contained corn cobs, footprints lingered in the dust of rock shelters, stone tools remained where they had been dropped centuries earlier. In the American Southwest, preservation at this level is exceptionally rare. The ruins scattered throughout Range Creek are mainly linked to the Fremont culture, a group that lived across what is now Utah from roughly 300 to 1300 CE. The Fremonts themselves remain something of a mystery. They don't fit neatly into the better-known ancestral Puebloans to the south. Their architecture varies widely. Their artwork shifts from place to place. Their way of life blends farming with hunting in ways that suggest adaptability rather than strict tradition. Range Creek captures that complexity within a single narrow canyon. Walking through the area today, you'll find dozens of granaries tucked into cliff faces, some no larger than a refrigerator, others carefully constructed with stone walls, mud mortar, and small openings just large enough to reach inside. These were not homes, but storage spaces. Corn, seeds, and tools were kept high above the canyon floor, safe from animals and seasonal floods. The sheer number of these structures points to long-term planning and a deep familiarity with the land. This was not a temporary stop. People expected to return year after year. Below those granaries lie pit houses, shallow, circular, or rectangular dwellings dug into the earth. Many show signs of repeated use. Hearths were rebuilt, floors repaired, walls reinforced. Families lived here, cooked here, raised children here, and eventually they left.
That departure lies at the heart of Range Creek's mystery. There is no evidence of violent destruction, no burned settlements, no mass graves, no signs of sudden collapse. Instead, the sites appear to have been gradually abandoned. Food stores were left behind, tools remained in place. It feels less like a desperate escape and more like a slow, deliberate decision. But why leave a place that clearly sustained life? One explanation points to climate. By the late 1200s, the region experienced prolonged droughts. Farming corn in a high desert environment has always been uncertain, and even small changes in rainfall could have made survival far more difficult. Another possibility involves social change. The Fremont were not a single unified society, but rather small communities connected through trade and shared ideas. If neighboring groups moved or merged into other cultures, the people of Range Creek may have gradually followed. There is also the idea that the canyon served a seasonal or specialized purpose rather than acting as a permanent homeland. Some researchers believe it functioned as a storage and hunting hub used part of the year by people living elsewhere. If trade routes shifted or subsistence strategies changed, the canyon may simply have lost its role. Still, none of these explanations fully accounts for the care visible in the structures left behind. These were not quickly built, disposable spaces. The granaries alone required immense effort, climbing sheer rock faces, hauling materials upward, and sealing them against weather. People rarely abandon that kind of investment without significant reason. Adding to the mystery are the rock art panels scattered along the canyon walls. Some display classic Fremont imagery, trapezoidal human figures, animals, and abstract designs. Others seem stylistically different, as though created by different generations or even entirely separate groups. There is no clear sequence or narrative. Instead, the artwork feels layered, almost like a quiet conversation stretching across centuries. What stands out most is how ordinary the place feels. This is not a landscape of towering monuments or grand ceremonial spaces. It is a lived-in environment. You can stand inside a shelter and imagine someone crouched there, shaping a stone tool while listening to the wind move through the canyon.
That sense of everyday life makes the abandonment feel more personal and more difficult to explain.
The modern rediscovery of Range Creek is a story of its own. For decades, the canyon was privately owned by a ranching family that quietly protected it. They noticed artifacts but left them undisturbed, keeping outsiders away. When the land was eventually sold to the state of Utah, archaeologists were astonished by what they found: entire sections of Fremont life preserved exactly where they had been left. Since then, research has been intentionally careful. Excavation is limited. Many sites are recorded but left untouched. The goal is not to remove every artifact, but to preserve the canyon as a complete system. In this way, Range Creek has become a lesson in restraint, showing how much knowledge can survive when a place is allowed to remain undisturbed. Visiting today, the canyon still feels remote. Access is controlled, and most people cannot wander freely among the ruins. Much of it can only be viewed through guided research or from a respectful distance. While that may feel limiting, it also protects the fragile sense that the story here is still unfolding. Standing there, it's hard not to wonder if the mystery of Range Creek is not about disappearance at all, but transformation. The people did not vanish, they adapted, moved, and became part of other communities whose descendants still live across the region today. What remains is not an ending, but a moment frozen in time. Today, Range Creek Canyon is protected as one of Utah's most significant archaeological preserves. Its limited access has helped keep it remarkably intact. At the same time, much of what could be learned may remain unanswered, intentionally so. Perhaps that is where its true power lies. Range Creek resists simple conclusions. It reminds us that ancient lives were complex, practical, and constantly adapting. Not every story ends in catastrophe. Sometimes people simply choose to leave quietly and begin again somewhere else, leaving behind a place that continues to remember them long after they are gone.
McConkey Ranch Petroglyphs sits in northeastern Utah, just outside Vernal, in a landscape that at first feels calm and open. Rolling hills, scrub grass, weathered rock outcrops, and long sightlines give it an almost pastoral quality. Nothing about the setting prepares you for what is carved into the stone. Then you step closer to the cliffs, and suddenly the space feels dense, almost crowded. The McConkey Ranch petroglyphs form one of the most concentrated and compelling collections of rock art in Utah. Hundreds of figures are pecked into the dark desert varnish, revealed where the rock face catches the light at just the right angle. Some images are immediately recognizable, others feel unfamiliar, even unsettling. Together, they form a visual language that remains only partially understood. Most of these carvings are attributed to the Fremont culture, dating roughly between 600 and 1300 CE. But as with much of Fremont's history, the attribution is not always straightforward. Styles overlap, motifs repeat, then shift unexpectedly. Some figures appear carefully planned, while others feel more spontaneous, as if added in passing. This layering suggests that McConkey Ranch was not a one-time site. It was revisited, reused, and reinterpreted across generations. The most striking figures are the human-like forms. Many have trapezoidal bodies, broad at the shoulders and narrowing toward the waist. Some lack arms entirely. Others have exaggerated limbs or sharply bent elbows. Faces may be blank or marked with dots and lines. A few figures seem to wear headdresses or horn-like shapes. These are not simple portraits. They feel symbolic, representing roles, identities, or ideas rather than specific individuals. Animals appear alongside them. Bighorn sheep are especially common, carved with curved horns and solid bodies. There are also deer, birds, and forms that are harder to identify. In some panels, humans and animals appear to interact. In others, they exist side by side without any obvious connection. Whether these scenes reflect hunting practices, spiritual relationships, or storytelling traditions remains uncertain.
What makes McConkey Ranch particularly intriguing is the repetition of certain symbols whose meanings have been debated for decades. Spirals appear frequently, carved deeply and with clear intention. Grid-like and ladder-shaped patterns show up in multiple locations. Some researchers suggest these could represent migration routes, water sources, or seasonal cycles. Others believe they may have served ceremonial or instructional purposes. No single explanation fits every example.
One of the most discussed images is a large, abstract, anthropomorphic figure, often referred to as the shield figure. Its body is wide and block-like, with minimal detail, as if the artist emphasized shape over realism. Similar figures appear at other Fremont sites, but the McConkey examples are especially prominent. Some scholars interpret these as ancestral or mythic beings rather than ordinary humans. Others suggest they may reflect altered states of consciousness, possibly connected to ritual or visionary experiences. Standing before these carvings, what stands out is their scale. Many are larger than life, positioned at or above eye level. This was not casual marking. Creating these images required time, effort, and intention. Someone stood here repeatedly striking stone against stone, slowly shaping each line. That act alone points to significance. Unlike cave art hidden deep within shelters, McConkey's petroglyphs are fully exposed. They face outward, visible across the landscape. This raises an important question. Who were they meant for? Were they messages to travelers passing through? Territorial markers? Records for the same community to revisit? Or were they directed towards something less tangible? Spirits, ancestors, or forces tied to the land itself? The location offers clues. McConkey Ranch lies near natural travel routes, close to water sources and grazing areas. It would have been a logical meeting place, a crossroads where groups gathered, traded, or paused during seasonal movement. In such settings, rock art often serves multiple roles at once: memory, instruction, and identity. Another layer of mystery comes from the lack of clear chronological order. Some carvings appear older, softened by time and weather. Others remain sharp, their lines still crisp. This suggests centuries of use, yet there is no obvious progression from simple to complex imagery or from one theme to another. Instead, the panels feel cyclical, as though later artists were responding to earlier ones rather than replacing them.
There is also the question of why this place became such a focal point. Fremont sites are scattered across Utah, but few showed this level of density. Something about this location mattered. It may have held spiritual importance, marked a boundary, or simply served as a reliable gathering place. Notably absent is any imagery linked to European contact. No horses, no crosses, no firearms. This absence helps anchor the site firmly in a pre-contact world. The messages carved here belong entirely to the people who lived with the land before outside influences reshaped the region. Modern interaction with the site adds a more complicated layer. For years, McConkey Ranch was locally known but not widely promoted. As awareness grew, so did visitation. Some panels show damage from touching, chalking, or careless behavior. That damage alters how the art is read. Lines fade, context disappears. Preservation efforts have improved, but the balance between access and protection remains fragile. Visiting today, what stands out is how close everything feels. There are few barriers between you and the carvings. You can stand just inches away, following the shapes with your eyes. That closeness is powerful, but it also reveals how vulnerable the site is. One careless action can erase something that has endured for centuries. What lingers most is not just the imagery, but the silence surrounding it. The landscape has changed very little. Wind still moves through the grass, light still strikes the rock at familiar angles. In those moments, it's easy to imagine someone standing here long ago, deciding what to carve and where. McConkey Ranch feels less like a single story and more like an ongoing conversation, one that unfolded slowly over generations. Each carving responds to what came before, adding meaning without fully explaining it. The mystery is not something to solve quickly, or perhaps at all. Today, McConkey Ranch remains one of Utah's most accessible yet enigmatic rock art sites. Its openness is both its greatest strength and its greatest risk. We can see it, study it, and feel its presence, but we may never fully understand what it was meant to say. And perhaps that is the point. The petroglyphs do not offer clear answers. They preserve thought, belief, and identity etched into stone. They remind us that ancient people were neither simple nor silent. They had ideas worth recording, even if those ideas now speak in a language we can only partly understand. Hog Up Cave opens along the western edge of Utah's Great Salt Lake Desert, carved into a limestone ridge overlooking a landscape that even today feels difficult to survive in. Salt flats stretch outward, broken by marshes, shifting shorelines, and long distances between dependable water sources. At first glance, it seems like an unlikely place for sustained human activity. Yet Hog Up Cave tells a story that reaches back thousands of years, challenging assumptions about where and how people once lived. The cave itself is not especially large. It's a shallow rock shelter rather than a deep cavern, wide enough to offer protection from wind and sun, yet open enough to remain connected to the outside world. That openness is important. Hog Up Cave was not a place to hide away in isolation. It was a place to pause, observe, prepare, and return to again and again. Archaeological excavations in the mid-20th century uncovered something remarkable. Beneath layers of dust and debris were artifacts spanning an immense stretch of time, from around 8000 BCE to roughly 1300 CE. That continuity alone makes Hog Up Cave exceptional. Few sites in the Great Basin show such long-term, repeated use with so few major interruptions. Among the most significant discoveries are the organic artifacts preserved by the cave's dry conditions. Unlike stone tools, organic materials usually decay quickly. At Hog Up, they endured. Fragments of woven baskets, sandals, cordage, and plant fibers were recovered from the soil, offering rare insight into everyday life rather than ceremonial display. Some of the most striking finds were sandals and moccasin-like footwear made from sagebrush bark and animal hide. These were not decorative, they were practical, durable solutions for moving across rough terrain in extreme conditions. Their designs changed over time, reflecting shifts in technology, mobility, and environment. Through them, archaeologists can trace adaptation across thousands of years. Stone tools were also plentiful. Projectile points, scrapers, and cutting tools reveal changes in hunting strategies and prey. Early inhabitants appear to have relied heavily on small game and gathered resources, while later groups expanded their toolkits, suggesting broader diets and shifting environmental conditions. These tools were not simply discarded. Many show signs of repair and reuse, indicating long familiarity with the site. One of the most intriguing aspects of Hog Up Cave is how consistently it was used despite major environmental fluctuations. The Great Salt Lake has never been stable. Its size and shoreline have shifted dramatically over time. At certain periods, the cave would have overlooked wetlands rich in birds, fish, and plant life. At other times, it faced a far harsher desert environment with limited resources. This pattern points to deep environmental knowledge. The people who used Hog Up Cave understood seasonal cycles, animal movement, and plant availability. They were not simply surviving, they were managing uncertainty in a demanding landscape. The cave functioned as a strategic point, a location that remained useful even as conditions changed. Hog Up Cave also challenges the idea of clear cultural boundaries. Artifacts from different layers do not belong to a single identifiable culture.
Instead, they reflect a sequence of groups tied to broader Great Basin traditions, later overlapping with influences from the free mob culture. Styles blend rather than fully replace one another, suggesting continuity through shared knowledge rather than abrupt population shifts. This raises an important question. Was Hogup Cave remembered? Did later groups knowingly return to a place used by their ancestors, or was it rediscovered again and again because it simply made sense geographically? There's no clear answer, but the repeated use of the same shelter hints at memory carry across generations, even without written records. Unlike rock art sites, Hogup Cave does not communicate visually. Its story is quiet, layered, and buried. That silence is part of what makes it compelling. Without dramatic carvings or monumental structures, the site draws attention to the everyday details of life, how people dressed, moved, and adapted, and what they chose to leave behind. One of the most debated questions is whether Hogup Cave served as a permanent home or a seasonal stop. Evidence suggests it functioned mainly as a temporary shelter, used during hunting trips, migrations, or resource gathering near the lake. Hearths show repeated use, but there is little sign of the structural investment seen in long-term settlements. That makes its longevity even more striking. For thousands of years, different groups made the same decision. This place was worth returning to. That continuity speaks more to geography than to ideology. The cave sits at a junction of ecological zones, where desert, wetland, and upland environments meet. From this vantage point, people could access a wide range of resources without committing to a single one.
There is also evidence that Hogup Cave played a role in broader movement patterns across the Great Basin. Similar artifacts appear at distant sites, suggesting shared technologies or exchange networks. The cave may have been part of a larger system, connecting groups across wide territories rather than serving as an isolated refuge. Modern excavations, though careful, also raise important ethical questions. Many artifacts were removed decades ago, before current standards of preservation and collaboration with indigenous communities were in place. Today, Hogup Cave is understood not just as an archaeological site, but as part of a living cultural landscape tied to descendant peoples. That recognition has changed how the site is approached and interpreted. Visiting the area now, the cave feels understated. There are no large visitor centers or dramatic displays. The landscape itself dominates. Wind moves across the flats, and the scent of salt lingers in the air. It is easy to imagine why people once paused here, using the shelter for protection while watching the shifting terrain around them. What makes Hogup Cave powerful is not a single unanswered question, but the accumulation of many. How did knowledge persist across such long stretches of time? How did people navigate environmental instability without permanent settlements? How much of what we see reflects continuity, and how much reflects rediscovery? Hogup Cave feels less like a mystery in the dramatic sense, and more like a testament to endurance. It shows how ordinary decisions, repeated across generations, can leave behind extraordinary records. The people who used this place were not trying to create a legacy. They were solving immediate problems. Yet those solutions endured long enough for us to glimpse them thousands of years later. Today, Hogup Cave stands as one of Utah's most important Great Basin sites, not because it offers spectacle, but because it offers perspective. It reminds us that ancient life was not defined only by monuments or ceremonies. Much of it unfolded quietly in places chosen for practicality, memory, and survival. The artifacts left behind do not tell us everything. They cannot fully explain belief systems or social structures, but they do something equally valuable. They show how people lived with uncertainty, adapted to change, and continued forward in a landscape that demanded constant awareness. Hogup Cave does not ask to be solved. It asks to be understood on its own terms, as a place where human presence endured not by dominating nature, but by working carefully within it.